Microphone 5, testing mic 5.
Continuing education knows that at the end, students want to graduate, and we can help them do that because we take the time to really listen to their needs and we understand all the different options that are available across the campus for them.
We don't take a cookie cutter approach. We realize each student comes with their own story. So whether it's a part-time student looking to complete a degree program or someone just looking for online courses, we're there to connect them to the resources of the university.
Good morning, everybody. We are at the Working, Learning, and Thriving in a New Country session. We're in room UMC 235, and this is session number 17972. Before we begin, I want to note that this is a note card or index card question system. So CJ is going to go around and give you some index cards and pencils. So if you have questions, please just write them down. And at a certain point or 20 minutes before ending the session, he will bring the cards to me, and I will select those questions that are more, resonate more with the conversation that we will be having, okay? And if you are a student at CU, please note that on your note card because you will immediately go to the top and your question has a priority because we want you. So my name is Marina Lagrave. I am French, Venezuelan, Brazilian. I've been in Boulder County for 30 years. I am a United Nations interpreter and translator in 5 languages, and I began work in Boulder County as climate equity specialist. My career has been all about diversity, inclusivity in STEM education. And I'm very much into climate change, and I'm an environmentalist. But this is all about our amazing panelists, and so I'm gonna just go ahead and introduce our panelists today. When reading over their bios, I see that 3 distinct tracks here. I see one track on academic that Dr. Renjin Firat comes from. She's a neuroscientist with over 10 years of experience of postdoc PhD experiences, conducting research on interpersonal behavior and group dynamics. She's a sociologist by training, and her research focuses on social, psychological mechanism underlying intergroup conflict and civic behavior, with particular emphasis on group identities, ethnic cognition, and moral values. Then we have another track which I consider more on the business side of this experience of immigration, and that's Charles Mslanga. See, I'm trying to pronounce this last. I think it's so important to pronounce our names the way they should. So he's the founder and executive chairman of Hatima Africa, where he orchestrates the development of vision and strategies aimed at educating, mentoring, and training the next generation of leaders in Kenya and East Africa. Charles lives in Denver, Colorado, and he champions from there the African Chamber of Commerce, Colorado, where he designs programs to equip and support immigrant businesses, and then, you know, since each immigration case is unique, he really pretty much tailors that for each of the families or individuals he's assisting. And then we have Suma, I'm going to try to do this right. Satyana Narayana. See? And she's a graduate student passionate about supporting entrepreneurs through venture capital investment. She works in early stage investing and loves meeting awesome founders. Her experience working in businesses consulting led her to work with entrepreneurs and VCs, that stands for venture capitalist, where she found her love for working in the startup ecosystem, providing different perspectives as an academic, an auditor, a consultant, and as an investor. So we're going to start now with a land recognition that we always do here in Boulder, Colorado. And so, are you ready for land recognition? So before we get started, the University of Colorado Boulder, Colorado flagship university, honors and recognizes the many contributions of indigenous peoples in our state. CU Boulder acknowledges that it that it is located on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native American nations. The forced removal from these territories has caused devastating and lasting impacts. While the University of Colorado Boulder can never undo or rectify the devastation brought on the indigenous peoples, we commit to improving and enhancing engagement with indigenous peoples and issues locally and globally. We will do this reparation by recognizing and amplifying the voices of indigenous CU Boulder students, staff, and faculty in their work, educating, conducting research, supporting student success, and integrating indigenous knowledge, consulting, engaging, and working collaboratively with tribal nations to enhance our ability to provide access and culturally sensitive support, and to recruit, retain, and graduate Native American students in a climate that is inclusive and respectful. So as we read, this land acknowledgement is really very well aligned with what we will be talking in today. Because I'm gonna start our session by asking, how many of you have ever immigrated to a different country? Wonderful. So you are also my panelists, so I really hope that this is a fruitful discussion. As I mentioned, I came 30 years ago as a single mother with my 2 kids who are now married and, very successful, thanks to the education that they received here at CU Boulder. And I wanna explore that experience with my panelists. So I'm gonna move and I'm gonna sit closer to my panelists so we make this more of a conversation. See? So the first, can you hear me? See. Okay. The first question I have, it's all of you. I always say that we pursue careers that are meaningful to us, and in what ways, because of our lived experiences, they impact us and we want to contribute to the world, right? So I see all of you like championing somehow the financial success of immigrants in our country and the financial and the successful enculturation of people from other countries and cultures and languages into the US. So I want to start by asking each of you, what was the motivator for you guys to pursue your careers and this passion to supporting, people coming from other countries to the US and support their success in this country? And you can start in any order that you want.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Thank you, Marina. Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your time and joining the morning session with us. My name is Rengin Ferhat. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey. I moved to the US in 2007 when I was 24. I moved from Istanbul, which is a city of 20 million people, to Iowa City, which is a very small city. And I lived in Iowa for 6 years. It was a big culture shock for me when I first moved, very different. I didn't feel that it was going to be that different, but my experiences and interactions with people kind of pushed me into thinking that things were even more different. Because growing up in Turkey, we were all exposed to American TV, right? American music, American food. So I actually thought that I was I would be pretty well adjusted. But after moving to Iowa, I realized that people's perceptions of me were very different. I was telling Marina about some stories that I had when I first moved here. My first day, after my flight, my first day was in Chicago. My brother had a friend in Chicago, and we met to University of Chicago Springfield campus. And I went to this college party, American college party. In this party, somebody came to me and they told me, "Wow, you look so exotic." And I was like, I didn't know what that meant. Am I? I don't know. Because I grew up in Turkey all my life. I was like, okay. So I didn't quite get what that meant. But living in Iowa for 6 years, I had repeated exposure and experiences that were similar, where I felt that I was different. Over and over, people would come and ask me, "You have a different accent. Where is that from?" Or, "You look different. Where are you from?" Or they would try and guess. Actually, I was on the bus here, coming here this morning, and this gentleman came and sat next to me, and he asked me, "Are you from Spain?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm from Turkey." And he was super nice. And he started talking to me. He's like, I've never been abroad. And he gave me these socks, which are amazing. He was like, he said, these would look really good on you. And I love it. I thanked him. I'm like, this is great. This is my color. I love it. So I think repeated exposure and experiences like that. Being a social scientist, I was always passionate about social equity, justice, those types of topics. But my specific expertise on ethnicity, race, immigration, which I spent a lot of my career on this type of work, I think was formed through my interpersonal experiences early on in Iowa. Because I started thinking, I also told, I think, Marina, before we started, that I didn't know I had a race until I moved to the US. I did not know. People started asking me, what is your race? What have you put down? Because you have to put it down. I'm like, I don't know. One of my former faculty chairs, she's like, I didn't know what to put. I put yes, but like biracial. I was like, what, biracial? I'm not biracial. So it's always a constant kind of challenging. And these questions also have challenged my own perception, my identity. And I love it. It never bothered me. I think it kind of fueled my passion and my interests on these topics. So I think that's how I started all the just journey of studying and helping. And I love working with students. I mentored a lot of students, international students, but also students of color, also students coming from other marginalized backgrounds. I love working with students and helping them, kind of like teaching them, or not necessarily teaching, but even having brainstorming, having conversations about these issues and challenges, because it's important to share, I think, knowledge. It's important to share things and just, share and learn from each other. Grow together is very important. So this is my journey, and that's how I started.
Thank you so much. And one last question, was language a barrier for you when you arrived?
It was. I thought my English was excellent. Growing up in Turkey, I always aced all my English classes. I was like, I'm so good, I got this. I moved to the US and Iowa. I could not understand anyone. I could not talk on the phone. For the first, I think, 6 years of my life in the US, I avoided talking on the phone. I was so scared. I did not understand anybody on the phone. I did not understand anybody on TV. I think now I get it. Now I'm like, okay, I'm pretty good. I can tell I couldn't tell the accents also. I could not hear East Coast accent. People would tell me, this is East Coast, this is Southern. I'm like, I don't get it. It sounds English. I know it's English, but I don't hear the accents. So it was a barrier. But I think I'm improved. I have improved. I live in the South now. I live in Atlanta. I can definitely tell. There's this Southern accent. So it was a big barrier, but I think time. But for me, it was a lot of time and exposure that helped me. Now I'm very comfortable on the phone, on the TV. I feel pretty savvy now, but first couple of years, it was a challenge. That's also very important to understand, because I worked as a faculty, and I worked with a lot of international students, and that's why it was very important to understand when they first move, this is gonna be a big barrier. Language, because also shapes our cognition, the way we see the world, the way we perceive the world. So it's very important to have the understanding that this is gonna be different, depending on where people come from, what culture they grew up in. In Turkish language, we don't have gender pronouns. There's no gender. So it was a challenge for me to learn or to even specify gender whenever I'm talking about a person, or even a dog or a cat. I made so many mistakes, but I always consciously had to okay. And then I was frustrated. Why do I have to think about their gender all the time? So even that was a big challenge, and I had to learn and unlearn a lot of things. So whenever we interact with someone, if their first language is not English, there might be all these things, differences, nuances that might be affecting the way that they speak, they think, and it's very important to I think, have that understanding and empathy, the other person's perception.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, such a descriptive way of, thank you so much, Gina. So let's go to our next and wonderful, who would like to go next?
You want to go? All right.
Is
Yeah.
Okay, Suma.
Suma, yes. I think I'm, in terms of like my journey in the United States, I'm relatively new. I moved to Boulder just about like 2 years ago now. And I think I moved in late November. So for me, the first thing to get used to was the weather. It never gets as cold as it does here from where I come from, which is Bangalore, India, which is the south of India, right? So I think physically trying to just adjust to the environment was obviously like a very big thing for me first. But then I applied to school, got admitted, and I just remember vividly those first few interactions where I just remember being like tongue-tied or like constantly like rehearsing what to say in conversations. We spoke about like language as a barrier, right? So primarily that was not a barrier for me because I've always, like all my studies and work, my first language has always been English. So I didn't have that problem, but I feel like I was obviously missing like context and like cultural nuances. And yeah, so that was where I was like, oh, okay, like I'm not sure people get me or like see me like when I say something. And same, right? Like I don't think I was entirely understanding like what the other person was saying. So that I think was definitely something new for me. But then I think like, but yeah, so my background, like you mentioned in my introduction, passionate about like entrepreneurship and venture capital, that I'm kind of drawing that from my previous background in India where I used to work with a lot of entrepreneurs and VCs. Mm-hmm. So when I came into the MBA program, I applied to a fellowship which was purely entrepreneurship based. And the first conversation I had with my program manager, I was speaking about entrepreneurship in India and like stuff like that. And she was like, oh my God, Suma, you're speaking our language. And I was like, oh, that's, so I think I had this realization that when it comes to like your passion or like your work, there's like this universal language. For example, finance, right? Like I am by technical qualification a finance professional. So I feel like initially I tried to like break those barriers by kind of speaking about like my work and like what I'm passionate about. I think that's what helped me connect more with people in general. And when it comes to like supporting, I don't think I specifically work in supporting immigrants, but what I've been working on a lot for the past couple months is supporting underrepresented founders as a venture capitalist. That's something I think I'm really passionate about. I think what I want to do or I want to see is more equitable capital allocation, right? And I think that also comes from lived experiences. Venture capital is still a very hard industry to break into. There's almost like very, very less diversity in VC, just also very an exclusive industry. So I feel like my own journey has been so challenging but I want to stay on and like hopefully make it more approachable, right? At some point I considered, I was like, I don't think I'm meant for this industry. Maybe I should just quit. But I've also had like really amazing mentors. And I remember one of my mentors, she was like, but Suma, if you quit, like, like there's no one going to be who looks like you in the VC industry. So I guess like that's what drives me to just keep at it.
Thank you so much. I do think that, the American dream, no? So many people come to this country pursuing capitalism as the American dream and to build wealth and to build security for themselves and their families and to build that future in a new land. So finances are important and understanding how to navigate that is super important in a different country. We'll elaborate on that in a few, but I want to go to Charles now. Thank you, Charles, for letting the ladies go first. Does that mean anything? Go ahead. Tell us about you and what drives your work every day, because you seem very committed to what you do.
Thank you so much, and it just means that's how I was raised. So
I love that. That's what I prompted that question. Exacto.
So I first came to the United States in the year 2019. And I came through a program called Watson Institute. And what Watson Institute is a program based in Boulder. What it does is that it selects young change makers all over the world who are doing initiatives, projects, and ventures that are directly impacting and transforming their communities. And I was still doing things related to Hatima Africa, and I was working on mentoring young people, raising leaders, and solving a problem that I grew up encountering, and that is poverty, unemployment, and violence extremism. And coming to Watson, that's when I saw the University of Colorado. And what Watson Institute did to us, it made us, to me, personally, it gave me an exposure to dream big. Like, I never knew that people can have an opportunity to go in a beautiful school like this. Like, to me, this was like, wow, this exists in my lifetime. It was a realization that made me to have an interest. And I left with the conviction that, you know what, I also want to come to this school. And I went back home, finished my undergrad, and I applied to CU and got selected, luckily. Coming to CU, to answer your question, I think every pain leads to a purpose. I think every problem creates a purpose. And to me, my motivation was the problem to solve and to help young people in my community overcome poverty, unemployment, and violence extremism. And that shapes a lot the work that I do today in my entrepreneurial endeavors and my social ventures. And so I took that opportunity to come to see you so that I can be able to understand how best does the global economy works. And I'm very grateful to be in this country because, number one, it has given me a platform. Number two, it has given me exposure. Number three, it has given me a lot of knowledge. And number four, it has given me significant networks of individuals who are very supportive and helpful to the mission. And I use that to be able to do good, not only here, but globally and in my country as well.
Thank you so much, Charles. I really love what you said about every pain leads to a purpose. And I think we all agree, regardless if we're immigrants or not, if you really discern and really sit with that, you know, something, a solution or a more of a global solution comes about in terms of saying, I don't want anybody to go through this ever again. So let's talk about the process of enculturation. You know, there's three processes when we talk about acculturation, which is when someone from a different country comes and seeks their equals. So I would, as a French woman, would like to find, you know, French people in Boulder, so I feel more at home. Yes? Hello. Hello. Bonjour. Bonjour. So see, right there, right? Right there. I already feel at home. It's like, oh, someone is here. It's like, knows who I am in terms of my culture and my, you know, my social and my language. So the acculturation is when we seek, and we see this a lot with the immigration communities, and you go to New York and you have Little Italy, the French Quarter, or the, you know, you have, and that's acculturation. That's me finding my equal so I feel safe in my community. When you talk about the Latinx here in Boulder County, depending, you know, you also try to follow your tribe, so to speak, because you feel safer, and that's finding your family away from family. So it's a way of feeling, I'm home somehow, right? Then there's a process of enculturation, which is assimilating the language and the culture from that other country. For example, you can't drink at 18, whether in my country you can drink at 18, well, in the US the law says until 21. So that is enculturating, learning the laws, learning the language, and learning how to navigate the space, correct? So we have got, and then there's a term that we don't really like, which is assimilation. Assimilation is pretty much making a smoothie out of us, right? It's just, you know, I always say that acculturation is keeping the tomatoes and the avocados and the lettuce, you know, and then the avocados look for the avocados, and the lettuce looks for lettuce, and they find their equal to make their salad, right? The enculturation process means that I am going to venture out of being a tomato, and I'm going to wonder, see how the avocados look like. So I'm going to sort of, you know, learn from each other. Assimilation is forget about who you are and just become us. And that's impossible. What is possible is enculturation, which really gives me the set of values and norms and languages so I can function and be of service to my community, right? So it's our, as we pursue this dream, we have to go through this process. This process of enculturation can take 8 to 12 years or more. When you talk about to immigrants who immigrated to this country many years ago, it's not rare to hear, oh, my grandmother never spoke English. She only spoke, German. And so in your work, because you come from this various perspective, not everybody comes to do a grad degree, or some people come here, just land here, and they're trying to find their way. In what ways do you envision or do you see, and I'm going to talk to Charles about that because I think out of the three, you are the one that's really, like the baseball glove, right? You're catching that member of that father, that mother really trying, or that individual trying to break through, to learn the system, to be correct, to follow the norms and the rules, but not having a network is difficult. In what ways do you support the community of Africans coming to Aurora, Colorado, where you're at? And how does that go? Because if I'm here and I don't know anything about this country, how can you support me in navigating and enculturating?
First of all, I think when we're talking about that subject, the beginning of anyone's life, the beginning of anyone's journey shapes their life when they come in this country. And one of the things that I think plays a significant role, whether or not someone can have success or not, is community. And I find it to be a very, very difficult thing for someone who just came here with no information, no knowledge, and no community or individual to actually thrive. It's very hard. In my work that I do, which I at the African Chamber of Commerce, Colorado, we try our best to be the one-stop shop where anyone who doesn't know anyone and is in this country, they can know if I go there, I'll get help. And that's what we do, because coming here without understanding and realizing how the system even works can be terrible. This is a country where everything is fast-paced. Fast. Everything is fast-paced, to a point whereby even understanding how someone is not able to get something, the system makes you feel like, you're a poor planner. But genuinely, I didn't know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and most of these communities, or most of these people come from communities where Ubuntu, I am because we are. Yeah. They come from places and spaces where my problem is our problem. And then you come to a place where your problem is your problem, and it doesn't matter whether or not I'm thriving and whether or not I'm in a position to help you. As long as it's your problem, then it's none of my business. If it doesn't pinch me, it doesn't harm me, then it's not for me to solve or to sort. So coming to that transition is a very difficult process, and what we are doing basically is trying to be a one-stop shop where somebody will not have the transition in an abrupt way, but in a smooth process, so that they can be able to learn and understand how best they can be able to get into the system, thrive, and be able to create life for themselves and for their families.
Thank you so much. And you made me think while you were talking, and this, again, to elaborate on that, my panelists are all people of color, right? And they're viewed differently as immigrants than a white person from France, right? And it's just right there, that barrier. In that narrative, how have you personally, or how do you support your clients or your community in realizing that there are more, they will face more challenges. And you were mentioning, Regina, about the race, right? You didn't know that you were the race until you're like, oh, where are you from? Is the first question that we hear when someone hears our accent. Where are you from? And that already, I mean, when I'm asked, Marina, is that not a good question? I'm like, no, we just come from a place of different curiosity instead of just, putting me out there. It's like, tell me more about you, right? And let me tell you my story. But don't just jump in to try to just grab my heart in the very beginning. Where are you from? What language? Why do you speak like that? And what do you do? And how many kids do you have? It's very American, right? And it's not malintended. It's not because our community in America means bad. It's out of curiosity. But the way when we come and we don't know anything about race, we're like, what? What did you just ask me? Oh, I'm exotic? What does that mean? Tell me more about that, the two of you, just elaborating a little bit on that. And the othering that we feel when we arrive to the States.
Yeah, I think, Marina, what stood out to me about what you said was the whole curiosity aspect of it, where I totally agree with you. I think one thing I was not used to is I just feel like there's a lot of, people ask a lot of questions, which in a way has also helped me to kind of get more used to, I think curiosity generally has helped me as well, because what I understand is usually people really like it when you ask them about themselves, right? But I agree with you. I also don't come from a culture where that's very common, where you're generally asking a lot about the other person. And yeah, I mean, definitely I've had instances where I think because of my accent, maybe, the other person kind of switches off and they don't kind of understand, or they're really just staring at you, trying to really concentrate, kind of like read your lips and like understand like what you're saying. So definitely, I think I've definitely had instances of that. So it's all about like, me trying to wonder, do I speak too fast? Like, should I speak more slowly maybe? I don't know, like, I don't know if that answers your question, but the curiosity definitely.
All answers are good.
Yeah, I mean, that curiosity aspect, I think definitely stood out to me as well, right? And that's something I've started practicing too, where I'm like, okay, generally I think there's I'm sorry, I think I'm a little tongue-tied now.
And I know there's a lot in your head, because this is a journey, and a journey full of, so many things that we live and
I'm
experience.
relatively new in this journey, so I think I'm still like kind of learning a lot. Yeah.
We are all learning and evolving. Our audience is too, right? Yes. So, Regina, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it is, like Suma, I also see it as an opportunity. Every interaction is an opportunity of like creating that positive, maybe climate, inclusion. And I'm not generally offended when people come up to me, but it might get taxing. Over time, there's a cognitive load. It's like an emotional labor that you put in, that you always have to explain yourself. You always have to kind of talk about where you come from or what you are, who you are, and it might get taxing. I'm a very social person, so I don't always mind it. I like to talk, but still, even for me, it might get taxing. It's an emotional burden, so it's important to recognize that as well in that other person, because sometimes there's genuine curiosity, and it's great, and I love that people are curious, they want to talk to me, but sometimes even that might get taxing, because maybe I'm having a bad day. I don't want to talk about that. And the feelings of othering is also, it doesn't always feel great. So a lot of my research focuses on social exclusion, and I also do brain imaging studies on social exclusion. One thing that we find, the research shows, is that people feel social exclusion as physical pain. It hurts. It hurts to be excluded, and sometimes exclusion is in these subtle cues, right? Feeling different, feeling that you don't belong, feeling that they don't understand you. And that might become taxing, that might become a load on us, and that might be stressful sometimes. But my other research also shows that cross-ethnic interactions and friendships are very important, especially if you live in a diverse area, if you have exposure to people from different backgrounds, and college towns are often like that, because there are a lot of students that are international, they might be coming from different states, different countries. It's very important to have cross-ethnic interactions. Like what I find in my research is that people who have friends who are people from different from themselves, like different ethnic backgrounds, different cultures, are happier in diverse environments. So that's also important too. But like doing it in a non-abrasive way, just like having the platform where you are equal and you become friends is more important. And it's also important to understand the cultural differences. I thought it was very interesting that you mentioned, Suma, that where you're from, people don't question that much because it might come off as rude. No, people might think that it is rude to be questioning or asking too many personal questions. Whereas here, maybe it's more okay. So it's very interesting to think about these nuances and differences as well, and being mindful of that is very important, I think.
Thank you so much. These are powerful answers that take me to my next question. You know, we have been, since COVID mostly, we have been, since George Floyd, we have been really, you know, elevating equity, diversity, and inclusiveness. And what does that mean? White supremacies, we've heard all of these terms. We're well aware of those, right? Everybody pretty much knows what I'm talking about? Great. So, because I think it was an awakening, I mean, this is my very personal perspective, an awakening in our community, like, oh, as you just said, oh, this hasn't, my actions as a white woman or a white male has an impact of someone of color. And while I'm well-intended, because I do feel that in Boulder County, everybody really is supporting and wanting our immigrant communities to thrive. And I see you being one of the amazing institutions that's really promoting that, as we just read on the land acknowledgement. But is there a roadmap? Is there a roadmap? I mean, if I was to plan to move to Germany right now, and I just want to go and pursue whatever I'm pursuing, is there a roadmap of the things that I should be doing and looking to establish my network, to establish my social capital, to understand the challenges that I'll be facing, to understand the impacts that this move will have on my family? Is there a roadmap? Charles, I'm looking at you because you have, I guess you have a lot of these conversations with the individuals that you're serving through the chamber.
To be honest, I think it's a deep problem. I think deep is the word, because some of the actions that people who are implementing, let's say in a new community, an immigrant coming to the U.S. Some of these things they are being done, but not in a way that is intentional. You know, sometimes you can do an action not knowing this action is affecting or disturbing or hurting someone because of curiosity. But how you express that curiosity is something that I think the world needs to learn. And by the world, I mean everywhere, because even an American going to Africa, some of these things, how our culture is, may not be a good way to make you feel welcomed or something like that. So I think it's a thing that everyone needs to have as far as cultural sensitiveness is concerned. Like, you are from a different culture, at least learn how do you live life, how do you engage where you come from, and have some sense of I don't want to use the word mercy, but have some sense of understanding when somebody speaks in a particular way, reacts in a particular way, behaves in a particular way, wears in a particular way, eats in a particular way, drinks in a particular way, does or does not do things in a particular way. Yes. Should not be seen as something that is not normal, but it's normal in their perspective. It's
just
normal in their...
It's just different.
Yeah, it's just different. How you live life is not the perfect way of living life. Somebody else has a different perspective of how they live their lives. So I think it's a sense of education and awareness that the whole world needs to understand and realize if we want to reach the goal of inclusivity that we all want to see.
So I'm going to tie what you just said with what you, Renina, said, is the curiosity, right? And in what ways does curiosity, Suma, has played a role into your assimilation process?
Yeah, I think, like I said, what I understood is that the best way to connect to someone is like just asking them more questions, either about themselves or like their work, right? So I think like what I started doing was, when I went to an event, I knew like, okay, these are the people coming there. I used to research about them. And I always went with a very specific question about someone's background. And I'm like, for example, there was a VC that I was meeting, and I knew that she had worked with Michael Porter, whose philosophy we learn in business schools, which is known as Porter's like 5 forces. And that was like super interesting to me. And then I just went with that one question, right? I was like, hey, I just, found out you worked with Michael Porter. Like, what was that like? And that conversation just like, I could just see, her eyes light up, and she was so passionate to talk about like her work, her experiences. I think, yes, that's definitely helped me assimilate in a way where I'm able to like make those connections on a deeper level, rather than, just trying to like make conversation superficially. I think that's the way I've been trying to navigate my journey, where I'm like, okay, this is maybe the way I can connect to someone here.
Thank you for that answer, because what I take from that answer is that, and my lived experience also, is that assuming the whole narrative, so I'm looking at you, and I could say, white male, he might be from here and there, he's not that, and I make this whole, narrative of who you are. And immediately, we know that racism plays a role in that, and the color of our skins in America, right? This is sort of something we're trying to, as we are in this time and age, we're really trying to understand better and to advance, right? Equity and inclusivity in that way. So the assumptions that a dominant culture can have towards us and the lack of curiosity is really damaging. And that really leaves a lot of people of color just doing networks among themselves. For example, one of the ways Boulder County, in this instance, is trying to support the entire communities by festivals and all these things, cultural festivals, where everybody's invited, and then the curiosity plays a role in like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Latino festival and check it out and see what that is about. But to my dismay, I mean, when I go to these festivals, I find mostly the acculturated community, right? All the Latinos are there, or all the, Nepalese are there. But where is the counterpart of our community, the white community, that really says, I'm curious about you, not only the food, but also about the way you go about life. And there's a lot of, to me as a United Nations person, to me that's the beauty of life, to really knowing people, of knowing different ways of living and different ways of valuing what we have around. But there's immigration laws. There's always the barriers that you have to overcome when you want to try to discover, belong, and develop. And that can be and you were saying, Regina, that it really adds, meeting new people really adds to your well-being. But then you're here, and then you are going to all this set of barriers and barriers and barriers and barriers, unless you come highly educated and someone sponsors you for your visa, your work visa or your green card, you're on your own. What has been your experience there to overcome this very important barrier that immigrants face? And anybody traveling to any country, that's the first thing you see, right? What are the immigrations laws? Can I work there? And how long can I work there? And how long is my, how does this process go about? Can you tell me more about that?
I mean, there are many challenges, of course. There are many challenges, and I'm a privileged immigrant, right? I came on a student visa. I had a scholarship that paid for my ticket. I came to a very good university, University of Iowa. They already had international students, like office that helped out with a lot of things. Still, there are so many challenges. Like I was talking about this before the panel. How do you get your utilities? Like, how do you get a credit card? How do you get a bank account? All these little things that you don't know how to do in a foreign country. And then they also don't let you do it. Like, they don't always let you get a bank account. They don't always get you. I couldn't get a credit. I didn't have a credit card for a very long time. Until I was a faculty. I was a tenure track faculty at Georgia State. I did not have a credit card. I also didn't know that you needed a credit history. We don't have that in Turkey. I didn't know what it was. I always because I didn't want to get into debt. I was a student. I didn't have a lot of money. I only used the money that I had in my bank. So I only had a debit card. So for 6 years I was here, I did not have credit history. I went to the bank because I was at the university. I'm like a new professor, right? I'm excited. I'm going to go to these international conferences. I'm giving invited like talks. I told the university, and they have the money for travel, can you get my ticket? They're like, oh, no, we don't do that. You buy your ticket, and we reimburse you. And I'm like, how do I buy this? And also there's the hotel, there's conference registration. It's so expensive. And they don't pay you your salary up front, right? You have to work there for a month, then you get paid at the end of the month. Then you get reimbursed. And reimbursing is even later. And they were shocked that I didn't have a credit card and I couldn't buy. I could not just pay with my credit card. And I'm like, I don't have it. I can't. Like, I had to go to my department chair and I'm like, I don't have a credit card. And he was shocked. How can you not have a credit card? Then I went to the bank. I need a credit card. And they told me, lady, you have zero credit history. We cannot give you a credit card. I was mind blown.
And then you went to Summa. Summa, help me.
I mean, thankfully, the bank, these are the small things. The bank teller was very helpful, and he was like, I got you. We're going to open you an account. It's called a secure card, and you just accumulate. First, you put in money, but it just builds your credit, and then we give you a real credit card. So that person told me how to do it. I did not know how to do it. And so I think that's why all these challenges, it's very important to have the connections and the people. We call it social capital, right? These people you know, and not necessarily just your friends, but your weak networks, like people you meet, they give you advice. I also moved to France from US. I also have that immigration journey, and that was even more difficult. No? Oh my God, I did not speak French. I could not get utilities. They would not give me a bank account. I was doing my postdoctoral research. My postdoc supervisor, he had to come at me to the bank and watch for me, saying that this person is working for me, because I needed a bank account to get paid. I'm like, how am I going to get paid? Then they opened the bank account. He said that he gave his own address. He's a French person. And for the utilities, a grad assistant in my lab, I felt like a little kid. She came with me to all the utility services to open my electricity, my gas. She was so nice. She came to, when I was searching for apartments, all the rental places, she just joined me. And I felt so incompetent, right? I already had my PhD there. I was a postdoc. And I felt like a little child. I'm not capable of doing anything. But I was so grateful to those people who helped me out, because I was eventually able to maneuver everything through those people, right? And they were not my family. They were not close friends, but they were very helpful people. And it's important to have, I think, that community. And I think that's why your organization also, Charles, sounds so amazing, which I think might provide that infrastructure to people, right? That support, that help when you first come here.
Yeah. And again, curiosity from that individual that supported you in saying what, and then going all the way to supporting you. And I think I would add this, it's a very humbling experience, isn't it, for you and for the person that was supporting you, right? In realizing, you don't have a credit card. Oh my God, this happens, right? And so it's humbling experience from both ends. We have how many minutes, CJ, before questions? I'm good? Okay. Now it's good? I wanna close with Charles before we get to questions. Go ahead, Charles.
So I'd like to add what Regine said. All that, it comes with a lot of depression. A lot of depression.
When you say depression, is mental health, mental depression.
Mental.
You get depressed.
And how the system is before you get into the system, when we're talking about the legal aspects, there is so much that as an immigrant, it's assumed that you already have, yet you don't. And you can do literally nothing without a social security number. And my experience and the experience of many people that I've engaged with is even renting a house, they will never allow you until you get a social security number. As an immigrant, you cannot get a social security number until you prove you either have a source of income or a job, legal.
Yes.
That means a registered company or something like that. Now, when you're a student, if you don't have an income plus job, then that's it. And as a student, another thing, as a student in Boulder, University of Colorado, the maximum that I've seen that the university can pay is $20 an hour. You're only required to work 20 hours a week, not more than that.
That's how much a week? 400.
400. So in a pay period,
$1,600.
$1,600 in a month.
To live on
so,
that,
so,
yes.
so think about that in Boulder, how hard that could be. So what I'm trying to say is that all that comes with a lot of stress, pressure, and depression. And all I just wanted to say is let's have grace to international students. What they go through is a lot. And some of us, the word help, asking for help is like the last resort. Like if an international student comes and tell you, hey, I need help, they genuinely need help. So I just wanted to add that.
And I want to acknowledge what you just said there, because I think it takes a while by the time you realize this is a barrier, and by the time you sit down with yourself, how do I overcome this barrier? And then the ultimate resource is like, help me, I can't overcome it. I really can't do it.
Yeah.
But it takes, I mean, this enculturation process, again, takes 8 to 12 years. So imagine that, right? Trying to make a living, trying to get your kids to school or whatnot, and building your financial well-being. Suma, what would be your last remarks on this, on the immigration process and the legalities of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Especially when you're going to invest.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, honestly, I've not even started that journey yet.
Venture
I think I'm
capitals.
still like in my, happy student kind of life. But yeah, I think just like Rangin, I also consider myself like a privileged immigrant, because the visa that I came in, which has its own problems, is a dependent visa. So I got married and I moved here, but then a dependent essentially cannot work unless you apply for something super specific. That's something like my husband's employer has to apply, and then I had to wait like a whole year. So I think the biggest challenge I faced is just not being able to work, which meant I couldn't get an internship last summer. And obviously that can be really mentally very, like taxing, because I'm worried about my career. And yeah, I only got my employment authorization like late last year. So yes, challenges have been there, but that said, I think for me, I've always had the support system, which is my husband, right? Yeah. So I still had family with me. So I feel like, to a large extent, I've probably not experienced what like an international student who are just on their own, who are coming here for the first time. But yeah, generally, yes, agree, the immigration process and just being able to get like an employment authorization, for example, can be pretty challenging and time consuming as well.
And as Charles was saying, it really has an impact in mental health, right? In how you empower or disempower, how much agency you have over your life and those of your loved ones. How much can you do, right? Plus, trying to understand a new system, trying to gather the new language, trying to understand the new cultures, what what is appropriate, what not. It's taxing in one's emotions and well-being, and that of your children. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to a panel. We're going to go now to Q&A. And if there was a question that I didn't make that you would like to make, there's still, CJ has some index cards. We have 14 minutes left, so let's make this very fruitful discussion, I hope. The first question I have, and the only question I have, come on, guys, you have more questions. Nobody wants to move somewhere? This is for you, Charles. Great panel, love the yellow socks. How do you scale up one-stop shop that Charles mentioned?
I think the one-stop shop that I mentioned can be scaled when there is a public-private partnership. This is look, I come all the way from Kenya, and the problem that I've been going through, you know, the pain has changed into a purpose. So, and I think there are many people who went through what I went through, everyone, but there's no one-stop shop. Mm-hmm. And while I'm doing this work, I've realized this, like, it's not that it's not there, it's that the scale is so minimal. And by public-private partnership, I mean if there could be a sense of more efforts in terms of conversation about policy, conversation about, okay, someone just got here, where is the information that they will get so that they can be able to know you can get help in this place. A conversation like, okay, you just came here, you cannot rent because of the social security. Is there a way where some of these legal processes can, a center or an entity, both private and public, where they can go and be like, hey, we can guide you as far as getting all this? Because I feel like all these things, when you just come here, you are faced with, it's there, no guidance, no direction, no entity or organization where you can be like, hey, I'll go here. And I'm saying it's not like it's not there, it is there. But from my experience, it has been through individuals who I met through my first time coming to Watson. Mm-hmm. And thank God I created good relationships with them. And I'm just wondering, what if I never knew those people and I came? How would my life be? Because when I came here, somebody hosted me. When I came here, somebody told me, like, you need a bank account. When I came here, somebody told me, you need to create, the system here is that by default, you have to have debt. So you need to have a credit card. And I was like, is it a must? It's like, by default, yes. So all these things, somebody told me. And that's a private partnership that I think members of the community that I interacted and connected with really, really helped me with. And my view is that if that can scale in a large way, where members of the community in Boulder, Colorado, the whole of the United States, if they're aware of that, so that they can see how best to support people who come here. And one last thing, immigrants are one of the most resilient people that I've ever met. And I'll also like to say that the contribution they make socially, economically, and even in the improvement of life holistically is something that is very, very valuable. And I think that environment for them to thrive adds a very big role.
Thank you so much for that, Charles. It's beautiful. So what you're saying is there's no one-stop shop. We're all this. We're all the one-stop shop, yeah. Right? So there's always an opportunity out there when you see someone struggling or not knowing to approach and say, you need help there. What is Ubuntu? There's a follow-up question to you before we go to the next question. Can you define that, says our audience? Can you redefine or define again what Ubuntu means?
Oh, Ubuntu is an African word that means I am because we are. And the whole foundation of Ubuntu is the fact that everyone in the community is one, regardless of who you are, what you do, where you come from, and all that. And it's a concept that comes from my country in Kenya, Tanzania. We have a professor who goes to Tanzania every year, Laura De Luca. It's a concept that simply aims to encourage people within a community to take someone else's problem as their problem. Yes. Because the reality is, if a problem does not affect you, it's automatically none of your business, right? But the reality is, it should be your business, because something similar to that can happen to you tomorrow. And it is that hand of help that you have given when it doesn't hit you is the same hand that you will receive when it does hit you.
Thank you so much. Please do. Okay, so can you write it down on a, thank you. Let's write that down on a card. Thank you. And then I'm going to go to my next question while you write that down. Yeah. So these are two questions that I'm going to consolidate in one question, because we have 8 minutes. That's great. So what do you find strange about U.S. culture? What surprised you? And then this other question says, selective acculturation means we select cultural aspects we like and leave behind the ones that we don't like, others. What parts of American culture would you not adopt? So, you want me to repeat that, or you got it?
You want to go, Suma?
Suma is like, whoa.
Okay, maybe
I'll, go for it, Suma, you can do
That's
it.
a difficult one. But I think I'll answer part of the question which said, are you selective about what you want to adopt or not?
See, what surprised you and what would you not adopt?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have an answer to what I would not adopt, but
okay.
Being selective. I mean, yes, I think obviously all of us are on like our comfort zone based on like, our personalities, our cultural background. So I'll be honest, I think at least initially, I think I was definitely selective in, trying to adopt things which were just easier to adopt, right? Which I think like coming from like a cultural background as mine, and also like my personality type, which is like mostly introverted, right? So I guess like, yes, I think it's just human nature to try and adopt whatever is the easiest first. I think one thing I've just not been able to adopt at all is like, I'm trying to adopt the lifestyle, but then I don't know if I'll ever be able to ski, for example. That just scares me. I don't know if I'll be able to do that.
Let's go sledding first. Sledding. And how about you? Let's have short answers for this so we can move on. There's two other questions that I think are super, super awesome. So would you like to go, right, Nina?
I also want to talk about the things that I like to adapt, that I have been adapting and I love about like living here, is that being from the Middle East, being a Middle Eastern woman especially, has its own challenges about religion, identity, like overcoming these barriers, being an academic, being a woman academic also, researching these topics. And I love that I have this freedom and flexibility in the US that I might not have had back home, right? And I can still do it back at home, but I think here I have a different degree of freedom that allows me to be able to speak and do the things and have a bigger impact, and I love that. But there are things also that are different, very different cultural things. So in my culture, we are huggers. We love hugging people. When we meet them, we kiss them on both cheeks. Even strangers, we do that. And that took me the longest amount of time to not do that with Americans. Somebody even told me once in a conference that like I met them when I was younger and I wanted to hug her and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, and I felt so embarrassed. I'm like, what am I doing? I was like, this is normal greeting for us. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. So it was I think this is one part of my culture that is communal and that's very embracing different people that I love to keep. I try to use this to help other people. sharing knowledge is also part of that. Like, I don't know something I learned, I need to share this with you so you know that this as well, right? So this type of communality is, I think, something I'd like to embrace and keep, and also keep practice in my daily life.
Thank you so much. Right. Charles?
I just want to add on what she said. I just want to say that this is a great country, and I think many people living here or who are from here do not understand and appreciate that this is a great country. This is a country where you can be anything you want to be, you can do anything you want to do legally, and you can.
Yeah, everybody's laughing, but we don't know why.
Yeah, and you can. And you can become whatever, like you have a space where you can dream, which is
Yes.
not there
Yes.
in many parts of the world.
Yes.
And I think many people, I see people, they're complaining, oh, this water tub is not good. I'm like, I come from a place where we don't even have a water tub. So that's something that I think I have to say, and I have to acknowledge that we are in a great country. And
Yes,
that's the reason why many of us are here and many people want to come here. The second thing is, and this can be controversial, but I still have not understood how politics in this country work. And and that's something that I don't want to say I want to adopt, but it's something that I really distance myself, even though it affects me directly based on the policies that I look at the news. I'm like, oh. Yeah, so that's what I have to say.
Well, this is the last question. CJ, we have a couple more minutes for one last question. Just very short. What has been the hardest cultural thing to assimilate to?
I think for me, it's where I come from, it's time is kind of nebulous, but here it's like very, like, you know, if I'm meeting you for 30 minutes, I'm meeting you for 30 minutes, not like a minute extra, so.
I think Latinos like me would. We learned that lesson really. I'll give an anecdote afterwards. How about you, Regina?
I would say the healthcare system has been hard. It's public in Turkey. Most education and healthcare is public. Also in Europe, has been challenging to me. Even like, okay, I'm paying all this money for the insurance, and I still have to pay to go to the doctor, and I can't afford it still. Has been, and it's not a cultural thing; it's a structural thing. Mm-hmm. But still, it has been a big challenge, a big barrier.
Thank you, Charles.
Wow. To me, I'll say it's the amount of work I have to do, or the double effort that I have to make to fight to get into certain spaces. An ordinary person who's coming from here, if they want to get to a certain space, I see it's like automatic, but for me, I have to prove myself. I have to ask someone to introduce me to someone, and like there are places that I find myself that I fight more to even be listened to. Like even some ideas that I'm having, I find myself that I push even 10 times more than any other person to do that. And it's something that I've experienced even being a student here.
Right.
There's some offices or there's some people I had to...
Yeah, you have to work it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but someone else, they did just
Straight
like
line.
that. And I was like,
How do you do that?
how do you do that? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that I'm still learning, and maybe it will change one day. Yeah.
Bueno, that's the end of our session for today. I want to get up and give this panel a great round of applause. You have been a great audience. Thank you so much, and have a great morning, and continue to enjoy the sessions.